Hello, everyone, and welcome to JobBoardGeek. It's the podcast about the business of connecting candidates and employers. I'm Jeff Dickey-Chasins, the job board doctor. I am your host. And with me, I have the sometimes sneaky Steven Rothberg of College Recruiter. He's the co-host. Hey, Steven, how you doing?
I'm good, Jeff. It is really wonderful to be with you. And for once, there are two of us with the same name. And so we're outnumbering you today.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to the one that I think has the better accent.
I'll
And
see you next. I'll see you next episode. See you
Yeah,
later.
right, exactly. Yes, so today we have a guy with a great accent and a wonderful sense of humor and incredible knowledge of the UK job board scene, Stephen O'Donnell of Nora's. And also, he's got a new gig now with TATech. So he'll tell us all about that. But first of all, Stephen, I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that popped up in the news in the past couple of days. There's a company down in Austin called Workrise. Most people probably would remember it from its original name as Rig Up. It just announced that it's laying off a lot of people. It
Hmm.
didn't say how many, but at the last time they raised money in May, they raised about $300 million to push themselves to a $2.9 billion valuation. They had 600 employees in 25 offices. According to some anonymous information that was being posted, they laid off 450 of those 600 people. So that's pretty substantial. Now what Workrise does is it started back in 2014. It was basically, a workplace, marketplace for people in the energy industry. And they decided to change their name in 2021 to Workrise because they decided they wanted to go into other verticals. So, in addition to oil and gas, they moved into construction and defense and solar and wind. And apparently, from what I can see, that pivot didn't work out.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, this is not the first time that the company has done this. Back in 2020, they laid off a quarter of their corporate employees when the COVID pandemic hit. And so I'm just amused, I guess, amused at one point, in one sense, how they portray this as a pivot, when to me it looks like we stuck our foot out too far. We didn't know what we were doing. We failed, and now we're going back. And I'm also amused at their ability to continue to get funding despite the fact that they keep falling on their face. And then I'm not amused about the poor employees that got laid off of this. It really seems to be a shame, but that's my take on it. What about you? What do you think?
Well, yeah, not amused about the employees who have lost their jobs, but at least if you're going to lose your job, to lose your job in this kind of labor market,
Yeah, that's
not
true.
such a bad thing.
Right.
Um, Unfortunately, we're all old enough to remember pretty well other recessions. And in other recessions, when you lose your job, you can easily be out of work for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months. It can be devastating to you and your family. But boy, if you're a software developer that just got laid off with Workrise and maybe you got a severance package, you probably already have 8 job offers and you're going back to work. And so you're in a way doubling up. I'm also really amazed, like you are, at the amount of money that they were able to raise very recently
Right.
and how quickly this has all happened. And then, yeah, when I was reading about it, I don't understand why they had so many offices, and some of the overhead that they had. The fact of sort of going out of one vertical and into multiple verticals, that's not necessarily a recipe for failure, right? You might have really good software, really good way of, creating that secret sauce on the background, and then that can translate really well into other industries. But the I don't understand why a company has 25 offices in this day and age. Even if it's a staffing company, how many people come into your office if they're looking for a job? That should just be done online. So it really seems to me like they had a massive amount of overhead going.
Yeah, it for me. It was a little bit of back to the future because, as you know, I got into the job board industry back in '97 with Dice, and we went through a very rapid period of growth over the 3 years I was with Dice. But one of the things that was happening in the industry at that point is there was a lot of money being thrown around, being
Mm.
thrown at companies like Dice, companies like Monster, et cetera. And then about the time I left, there was a huge crash. And it was the
Hmm.
same thing. You sort of look back on it and say, where did all the money go? And I definitely remember money being spent on multiple offices for, different types of favored employees. Oh, I don't want to have to commute into the city. Well, then we'll set up an
Mm.
office for you in Connecticut or, whatever it might be. So I'm not sure that was the case with Workrise, but I think their investors are going to take a bath on this one. So
Yeah, the offices for favored employees. It rings a bit of a bell for me because I've often been asked to be in another office very far away from everybody else. So I'm just going to take that as being a sign that I'm a favored employee, and I think we can all agree on that.
I think that might have been more about the company surviving, but
I think we should
anyway,
move on, don't you?
yeah, I guess we should. As I mentioned earlier, today we have a guest from overseas, from the British Isles, I guess I should say, or perhaps I shouldn't say that. Stephen O'Donnell. He founded Nora's, and he can tell us all about that. He's also working at TATech, which used to be IAEWS. And Stephen, welcome to Job Board Geek.
Afternoon, fellas. It's great to be here. Really nice to be here. Long
Yeah.
time fan of the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You may be the only fan. I'm not sure, but I do appreciate that. So, Stephen, why don't you start out by just sort of giving us some background on how you happened to get into the recruiting industry, and maybe you can also tell us how Norris came to be.
This will be my 35th year in recruitment. So I've pretty much
Wow.
always been in recruitment. Before that, I was a fax machine salesman. So that really dates me, selling fax machines. And that was before fax machines caught on. That really dates me even further. But until recently, I would say to people that most of that time I spent owning and running recruitment companies. But I've just realized now that most of that time has been on the technology side of online recruitment. There was a bit of overlap, but in 2000, I set up a job board. I set up a website which was essentially a signpost to every recruitment agency and employer and job board in the UK, and at the same time was trying to run a recruitment agency, and pretty quickly realized that riding two horses with one backside just wasn't doable. So I drifted out of owning a recruitment company, and I've been in technology ever since. And around that time, as a promotion for that website, I set up the NORAs, the National Online Recruitment Awards, and the purpose of that, bluntly, was it was a marketing exercise. I thought it would be great to win an award, but the next best thing to winning an award is being the person who's giving out the awards. If I give an award to Monster, for example, they've got a big marketing department and they'll shout to the world about it. So I thought that's kind of a cool thing to do and a good marketing exercise. But of course, it grew arms and legs. It's been going ever since. This will be our 22nd year of the NORAs, and the website that I built way back then is long since gone. It was sold in 2007, but I've worked with a number of tech companies in the time in between, from aggregators to psychometric evaluation companies, AI searching and matching, video technology, all of those.
Wow. So that's really quite a broad background. And I think I first met you, I want to say 6-7 years ago at one of the conferences. Might have been
Mm-hmm.
longer than that.
Yeah.
And I remember being really struck by the Noras because for whatever reason, there really wasn't any equivalent type of awards, and particularly the way you've got it set up in the
Yeah.
U.S. And I was jealous, to be quite honest.
I made the mistake, which turned out to be lucky, of not knowing how awards events were supposed to be run when I set it up, because, and I don't want to point fingers at any other awards events, but industry awards always seemed to be for the participants a bit of a backslapping exercise, and the way that companies submit themselves, they put in submission evidence and so on, and the judging process that they go through. It is quite different. What's very different to how the NORAs are done. We take nominations from the public in the first place, so we ask job seekers to nominate sites. We don't restrict it to only sites that submit themselves. So every recruitment website that's out there, anyone who's advertising vacancies or offering a career service to candidates, we're going to judge them, and we only judge from a candidate's perspective. So we only judge what we can see. If we can't see it, we can't judge it. So everything is done from the perspective of the job seeker. I sometimes say to people that I'm the hardest working job seeker in the UK, because each year I'll register with maybe 600 separate recruitment websites and apply for jobs and go through the process just to see how they're doing it. And it's strange how in the past 22 years how much has remained the same. Where some things have changed dramatically, and I always hoped. In fact, we're coming around to that now. I always hoped that candidates would get to the position where they could push back, where they could say, "We don't want to go through these hoops in order to apply for that job," and candidates are in a much stronger position now to walk away, which of course comes out in the form of what we would call ghosting these days. They get partway through the process and don't go any further.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's interesting, Jeff, that the timing when you met Steven was around the same time when I did. It was a different event. I met Steven at an event, a true London event that Bill Borman organized. And I remember walking away from that thinking that there's one like really, really cheeky, sarcastic person in the room, and his name is Steven. And that kind of reminded me of being in seventh grade when, they were like, me and one of my friends would just be continually kicked out in the hall. I kind of thought that was going to happen to us, but so if anybody hasn't had the pleasure of sitting next to Steven at an event, definitely that's what you want to do. Wicked smart, very knowledgeable, and definitely is going to keep you on your toes. So what I'd like to ask you, Steven, is about your new gig with TATech. For listeners who have been around for as long as us three old folks have been. It was born as as IAEWS, the International Association of Employment Websites. I think Peter Weddle, the CEO, changed the name roughly 5 years ago to TATech to sort of broaden, to be more inclusive of different kinds of talent acquisition. Some of the people who go to the conferences are job board people. Some of them are going to be those solution providers that are somewhat related, advertising agencies, job distributors, RPOs, people selling resume parsing software, whatever. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about a couple things. One would be sort of like your specific role, what you were brought in to do. And then also, I'm really curious, and I think others are as well, about what your vision is for the actual events. Coming out of COVID, we've all been able to do a reset, and there are always good and bad things. And kind of curious as to what, for those of us who used to go to virtually every TATech event and plan to go to ones in the future, what'll be different moving forward?
Okay. Well, first of all, to break it down, I can't even remember those letters myself, but I think that's my first word in Wordle every night because it's got all the vowels. So IAEWS. It's got everything in there, but of course it's impossible to remember. So I think we're all thankful that it was renamed to TATech, and TATech is exactly what it is. It's technology for talent acquisition. I was actually due to join the organization 2 years ago, just as the pandemic hit, and I'd been on the advisory board for a few years before that. And in fact, an event that I'd set up in the UK was being used at TATech events called RecX. So RecX is essentially, it's kind of rip-off of TEDx. So it's TED Talks for recruitment. It's 15 minutes of a tight, passionate talk on recruitment, and we ran RecX events in London and in Portugal and in Austin. Sometimes myself or sometimes with TATech. So as I say, I was due to join 2 years ago, but the pandemic hit, and when it came back around with hopefully we're coming out of the pandemic, I jumped at the chance to get on board. Given my background in recruitment and technology, and I'm a lover of gadgets and the way that tech works, but more than that, the way that tech impacts the people that are affected by how the technology is put into place, how it's adopted, how it's used by people in the front line, then TATech makes absolute sense for me. Not only that, but in all the years that I've been running the NORAs, I've always said to people, I'm not an events organizer. I just happen to organize some events inadvertently. The building of a community, the building of a big network, if you like, where I'm speaking with a lot of organizations in the industry, from employers to recruitment firms to technology companies and so on. It gives me a real insight to what they do and how they do it. And it's very similar to when I was working as a recruitment consultant dealing with my clients. So if I would have an insight to each of those organizations, it might be, big manufacturers like IBM and National Semiconductor, or tiny little companies who are supplying those big manufacturers. But I always found it fascinating to have that helicopter view of what they did. And in the same way with TATech, I have this, and as a born nosy Parker, I love to have that peek behind the curtains. So in terms of events, obviously in the past couple of years, events have had a huge shake-up. We've all seen the Zoom events and the virtual events and so on. And actually, in the pandemic, I got involved with because everyone pivoted to an extent. If you can't get out to events, then you do something different. So actually, in some ways, I was helping organizations organize their online events because I'm pretty well versed with the technology. Some of the organizations I'd help would be, well, a lot of them in the States, but the one that's a standout is the Miss America organization. So their online events I'd be helping to organize, and it meant that I'm now on first name terms with at least, I think, 13 or 14 Miss Americas, including the Miss America from 1948.
If only you could have been surrounded by attractive women like that in high school, but.
Absolutely. But as I say, having a peek into any industry is always really interesting. But the key thing is seeing how people responded to the demand to have events, but the block to having in-person events. In the past few months, there was a couple towards the end of last year, and luckily there was a window where in the UK everyone was let out, and that window allowed us to have the NORAs, which was great. But then, of course, it locked down again, and the prediction as to how events are going to roll out in the future. It's not so much it's anybody's guess, but we know that it's a movable feast. We know that everything is in flux. There's a number of companies I've been speaking with about their hybrid events, or committing fully to have in-person events. I went to an in-person event in February this year in London, and I got COVID again. The same event that I got COVID 2 years ago. So this time not so bad, so it's fine. But everyone is conscious about, what are the new protocols going to be? And anyone who organizes events has to have that in mind. And also understanding that employers might say, well, look, yes, events are open, we can go and see people, but we have new policies on who gets to events, whether we do it as a matter of policy, whether we pick and choose events more carefully, whether we look closely at how the protocols are put in place in those events. But certainly going forward, the in-person events with TATech are absolutely happening this year. The next one is in Austin it begins on the evening of the 31st of May to June the 2nd. And if people don't know, there are industry organizations for people who are recruitment consultants and agencies, and of course for HR and for TA, there are lots of organizations where there's membership groups. TATech is a membership group for technology companies providing technology to the HR and TA sector, and it's the only one. So this event will be the biggest of the year, and certainly going back to 2019, the last one that was able to be held, there were over 500 people there, and we expect the same or more for this event at the end of May.
Yeah.
So, Stephen,
if I can just like add a couple quick things to Jeff to that. So, College Recruiter has at least a couple people going. We have a new COO, Brad Boggs, a new head of sales and partnerships, Matt Simpson, who used to be, you probably know him from when he was at JobGate. So they're going to be there. They're very much looking forward to it. And the reason why we always try to have at least one or two people there, there's just no better event for partnerships. Whether the bourbon that's served after hours is of interest or not, whether the content is of interest or not, everybody that's there is very oriented to partnerships.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for people who maybe don't know so much intimately about TATech, there are about 350 members globally. Obviously, the bulk of the members are in North America, and of those, maybe 40% are job boards or tied in with job boards and technologies to do with job boards. But that's moving. The job boards are not growing in volume in terms of our membership, but the other technologies are. So those, whether it be ATSs or all of the secondary techs that hook into the ATSs, are in need of that catalyst to collaborate. And that's exactly what TATech is. So putting together organizations where they're working with each other, where they're deep linking with each other, where they're creating a new channel for sales. If, for example, and I'm not picking a company that's a member or not a member, but if Smart Recruiters, for example, were hooking in with a number of technologies that added additional services to their clients, then that channel where a customer can switch on a video interviewing service within Smart Recruiters platform or Aperture or any other, then what we're seeing now is that's a greater channel for sales than their direct sales. So companies, especially those ATSs, are focusing on that much more so. And of course, the secondary tech suppliers are seeing that as a great route to sales, where they don't have the same cost of sales. And they have a much easier route to being switched on, and probably in most cases, if it's rolled out correctly, much better adoption rates, which is vital for tech.
Well, Stephen, this has been really interesting. We're out of time, but I did want to ask you, if people want to get a hold of you to talk TATech, talk Norris, talk recruiting in general, how do they do that?
Easy to find me on LinkedIn or any of the other channels, on Twitter. On every account I am in social media, it's Stephen O Donnell with two N's on the end. But easily find me on LinkedIn and send me a connection. I'm very much a proponent of giving favors in order to build relationships. So if anyone needs anything from me, I'm more than happy to help, and I love getting involved.
Great. And I will say, once you've talked with Stephen, it's impossible to read anything on his Twitter feed without hearing his accent. So you have an amazing power there, Stephen. Use it wisely. And Steven Rothberg, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
The easiest way is to invite me for an authentic fish and chips lunch at a nice little Scottish shop. Maybe afterwards we can go for something that Stephen O Donnell doesn't like, which is a nice little dram of scotch, which is really, really horrible that a guy from Scotland doesn't like scotch. But I still like him. And
can I just say that this year, in the past couple of weeks, at least 4 Americans have contacted me, friends of mine, to say that they're coming to Scotland and can I help them organise their itinerary. So it seems that everyone's coming this direction, and if anyone is, I'd be more than happy to. And if anyone wants to catch me at all next week, I'm starting a new webcast show on Wednesday the 13th called Stepping Up with TATech. And my first guest is Josh Thywin of Paradox.
That's
Nice.
great. That's great. Well, listen, folks, this is about it for today's episode of Job Board Geek. I'm glad that you took some time to listen to us. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to us on Apple, Spotify, or any of the other many channels that we're out there on. And always, if you're giving a review, remember the thumbs up part of the review is for me, and the thumbs down part of the review is for the Stephen from College Recruiter. So anyway, this is Jeff Dickey-Chasins, the Job Board Doctor, and you've been listening to the only podcast that focuses on the business of connecting candidates and employers. That's all for now, and we'll see you again next time.